Hello there, Carol.
Hello there. I see we have an interesting visitor in John.
Yeah.
It doesn't look. Hi, John. That is not the goddess Taiki.
No, that is our capybara friend.
No one's gonna claim there's a resemblance, of course.
That's why I keep that one on as long as possible. Aaron, if you don't mind, if Steve Natick is on, you can promote him also, if that's all right.
Yes, I haven't seen him yet.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
It's 7 o'clock on my computer, but we're waiting for Elliot and Shona, and I believe John Dusa.
And then did Giselle say she was gonna join us?
Giselle's had a last minute change of plans and an emergency at work, so she's not gonna be able to join us, unfortunately. I see John Dusa, welcome. And Shona, hi.
Good evening.
Hi. We're just waiting for Elliot then.
Good evening.
Hi, Steve.
Good evening.
Hey, Aaron. Hello.
Giselle was joining as well, is that not right?
She had a last minute change and an emergency at work, so she's not able to join us,
Okay.
unfortunately. But I think Elliot will be.
How many do you need for a quorum?
3.
Oh, okay.
And John, I'm going to introduce you briefly, but save some time at the end of the meeting for you to maybe talk about yourself a little bit for us. Is that okay? Gives you time to think about it. And I think, because you were not at the last meeting and did not watch it, we can't put you on. We can't seat you tonight, but we appreciate your being here, of course.
Sure, thanks.
That's an interesting question. If he went back a week from now and watched the video, would he qualify if he sat in the night? What's the timing of that? As long as you watch it, or you need to watch it in some kind of chronological order?
Okay, so let's have discussions when our meeting starts, which I think can begin because
We have everyone.
has joined us also. And Madam, no, I'll start recording, but I did just want to ask if you could remind the members of the public who are joining us this evening that the continuation for the public hearing for 35 Cottage will not begin until 7:45.
Yeah, will do. All right, I'd like to call the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of September 1st, 2022 to order. It is 7:03. On the agenda tonight, we have a continuation of one of our public hearings scheduled to begin at 7:45. So I want to take a few minutes now to just review the process for public hearings. During the public hearing, the applicant will be invited to join as a panelist to present the application, explaining to the commission and others present what is being requested. The applicant or staff will share all application materials on the screen as needed. Comments of town agencies will be read for each application if there are any. There will be clarifying questions from the commissioners. Then there will be an opportunity for clarifying questions from attendees. Please raise your hand through the Zoom platform and wait to be called on and unmuted. Next, those who wish to support the application may come forward, and then those who oppose the application may come forward. As this public hearing must be recorded, it is necessary for speakers to identify themselves each time they speak by stating their names and address. The applicant will then have an opportunity to address any questions or concerns raised by the public or commissioners. Once the public hearing is closed, the applicant is free to leave or remain for the balance of the regular meeting, during which the commission will try to reach a decision on each application. Each applicant will be notified in writing as to the decision of the commission and has a right to appeal to Superior Court if desired. Decisions of this meeting are available the day after the meeting by calling the Land Use Department at 203-245-5631 after 9 a.m. All actions taken tonight by the commission will be by roll call. All commissioners and staff will identify themselves for the record before speaking. Seated this evening are members Ron Bodenson, Shona Hay, Elliot Hitchcock, and myself, Carol Snow. We also have a new member as an alternate, John Dusa. Welcome, John. And staff present this evening is Aaron Mannix, town planner. This meeting is live streamed on YouTube and will be made available on the town website for viewing. Additionally, I would like to ask that we not use other devices unless needed for the meeting and treat each other respectfully throughout the meeting. And the town planner will now read the legal notice.
There is no new legal notice for this meeting, Madam Chair. And although
Okay.
there was a question as far as seating John Dusuf with respect to an open public hearing, you do have an additional application that is new this evening. So you do have that ability to seat John for the meeting to be able to participate. Both in our POCD discussion and not that there's any actions for that, but as far as the 45 Wall Street site plan.
Right. I think, Aaron, because we do have a forum, I would like to not seat John this evening for half of the meeting. I don't know if that does that make sense?
He could be seated in Giselle's absence, and he could
Be unseated for the public hearing.
he can sit up. He can participate for this evening. I guess that's maybe John. That's how
How do you feel about it?
We can wait till next meeting. It's okay.
Is it okay?
Sure.
And I'm glad you're here and part of participating for this meeting. So it'll be smoother sailing, I think, going forward. Okay, thank you, Aaron, for that explanation. And we have our first agenda item is a discussion as an introduction to the Plan of Conservation and Development update with John Guskowski of Tyche Planning and Policy Group and Steve not Natick. Is that how I pronounce it? Is the H silent?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I guess I'll take it unless Aaron, you had anything you wanted to say ahead of time?
Oh, I'm happy to fill in where you want me to.
Okay. So thank you, Madam Chairman, and it's good to be back with the Madison Planning and Zoning Commission. For folks who I haven't met yet, my name is John Guskowski. I'm a professional planner with Tyche Planning and Policy Group, and I'm here with my colleague, Steve Natick. We were recently selected to assist the town with the update of their plan of conservation and development. I previously served the Madison Planning and Zoning Commission prior to Aaron's employment just about a year ago now, right, Aaron? Yeah. Where after Dave Anderson resigned, I served the commission, some of you will recall, on an interim basis, and very much enjoyed doing so. So it's good to be back with you. I note that we have a couple of people in the audience and a couple of new commissioners. So just in very brief, the Plan of Conservation and Development is a document that is mandated by the state to be created and updated at least every 10 years by the Planning Commission. In this case, obviously, Madison has a joint planning and zoning commission, but this task will be undertaken wearing your planning hats. And it is meant to direct, basically, as it says, where the town and how the town ought to grow, or how it ought to conserve its resources over the next 10 years, and basically direct not only action of this commission when it comes to things like zoning regulations, rezoning, development decisions, but also it helps to direct municipal investments in things like open space, or other municipal expenditures like schools or community centers and things like that. So all of those things are meant to be drawn out of the plan of conservation and development and sort of follow the basic themes. So this evening we're just underway. We're just getting kicked off. Your last plan of conservation and development, I should say, your current plan of conservation and development, was adopted effective November of 2013. So we are just about 15 months out or so from that 10-year period. And so basically over the next year or so, we will endeavor to sort of lead you and assist you in the process of updating this. So again, I understand you have an agenda this evening beyond the POCD. So I just wanted to provide a little introduction. I see Elliot has his copy there. So I think the first question, and again, this is meant to be sort of an informal discussion to get some sense of how you have felt about using the previous plan of conservation and development, if you felt like it's a useful document, and then to talk a little bit about some of the good things that have been happening over Madison over the last 9 or 10 years, some of the challenges you see facing this, and then a little bit about how you'd like this process to run. I think in general, in talking with Aaron, I think that the structure of Madison Planning and Zoning meetings is pretty good, that you guys have generally set aside the first of your 2 monthly meetings to try to do some planning where possible, where you didn't have a pending public hearing. And so I think ideally we would like to establish that schedule that we'll probably try to have a discussion every first Thursday. But we can also talk about other participation you would like to have, public input sessions, listening sessions, public hearings, things like that. So I'll stop talking and sort of throw out the first question. For those of you who have used the current plan of conservation and development, the 2013 plan, how have you found it? Have you found it useful? Have you found it, that you basically haven't read it and haven't found a need? Or what are some of your thoughts about the existing plan?
Elliot, do you want to go first? You have it in front of you, and I think you've been on the commission longer than the rest of us, so you've had more opportunity to use it.
I mean, I haven't, dove into it very deeply over the years. I had a great bunch of mentors on this commission, leading up to their departure last year, that I relied on more frequently, and they would reference the plan of conservation and development, and I never really had to, use it directly myself to educate myself. I was, relied on the long-term members that were on here. So I don't really have much to say. I mean, obviously it is a plan that we need to follow, and it probably does need some work after 10 years. And I look forward to the process of refining it.
Thanks, Elliot. Shona, your thoughts?
Well, as usual, I agree with Elliot. I feel like it has served to give us some milestones, I think, to sort of be thinking when we're thinking about projects that are coming before the commission. We've certainly referenced whether that was something that was in accordance with the POCD, and definitely I would say it has at times sort of swayed people, I think, who were maybe previously reluctant on a project when we sort of discussed that this was actually part of the longer range vision for the town. I agree with Elliot though, in that I wouldn't say it was something that we like pulled out at every meeting and referenced continuously. And it was interesting to me that there were, in our discussions, there were many parts of the POCD which haven't been realized. And I think it might be nice if we did have a good review of it and then really thought, you know, I guess maybe more really trying to be more of a planning commission than just a zoning commission and reactive commission, which feels like what we are at times. So if we can really think about some of the things that were in the POCD that we want to put into the new POCD, and then really think about how we could plan to make those things actually happen, I think would be a really nice use of it.
Thanks. And Ron?
Yeah, I think my experience has been like most written documents, agreements, no one cares what it says until there's a dispute. And whenever we had contentious issues before the planning commission, that's when we retreated to it to read it. We weren't reading it for every meeting because not every meeting has a contentious issue. And in doing so, I guess what I found to some extent is both sides could find something in there they liked for their argument about whether the central business district or density or whatever. And I think in fairness, in the end, one side would get a little bit better argument, but from the document. So that's my reaction. It's going to be a very interesting process, but hopefully it gets put in place and we only look at it when we need to.
So I'd like to say that I agree with what everyone else has already said, but I read it thoroughly last year because I'm relatively new on the commission and marked it all up and highlighted recommendations or implementation plans that were never carried out, and questioned some of the goals that were made 10 years ago. I also feel I agree with Ron that there seem to be many issues where you could kind of cherry pick the right answer. And so I think if we can clarify and, tease apart what those are and then maybe find a little bit more clarity, that would be helpful for us as using it as a guiding, a sort of overarching document, which is what I think it's intended to do. I also think a lot of people in town really care about it. So I think it will be really important to have public forums and a good group, a good working group. The sooner rather than later, I think. Yeah.
So if I can, I guess maybe follow up with what you're saying, Madam Chair and Ron. And I agree that people can very often find support for their position in a document that says a lot of things. And my first meeting with you folks was actually before I was hired as planner, and I believe we have Attorney McKeon on this on the call also, working with them for the Ledges project on just off of Route 1, and that was my first read of the Plan of Conservation and Development, looking for support for a small multifamily type project near the town center. And yeah, there are ways that you could read it in both in both directions. I think obviously there was greater support ultimately, as this commission found, for allowing something like that. But I guess that my question, maybe Ron and Carol, is, well, for all of you, is would a less maybe internally cloudy document, a document with a stronger voice and vision and level of consistency, obviously, it's, people aren't of the same mind, and people look at the same same area of town and see two different things. And so very often that's why these documents are worded in sort of a muddy way. But is it important to be simpler, clearer, more visionary, or is presenting sort of the complication important?
Good questions.
Yeah, go on, Carol.
Well, I was just going to say, the very nature of it being conservation and development, you can see that there are two sides, and sometimes they do meet about, right, for example, in the center of town, how do we make these decisions, or with the downtown village district? So I also wanted to add, though, actually, John, I'm going to deflect a little bit here, but so much has changed in 10 years. And I think the pandemic has also raised some challenges that no one could have anticipated in 2013 or in preparation of the 2013 document. So in a way, I think we need to look at some of the major issues with different eyes. And yes, if we can find a way to have all sides heard, and I don't know if prioritizing is a way to do that, or how, I don't know. These are just kind of random thoughts, right, for your question tonight, but a lot more thought needs to go into it.
Well, go ahead, Ron. Sorry.
Yeah, my response is simpler and clearer is always better. But given human nature, even given that, people will draw different conclusions or interpretations. What would be really good is that the document had no internal inconsistencies. On page 1, it was promoting this, and on page 17, just the opposite. So I think it's more important that it's consistent. Simple, clear is good, but everybody's still going to make their arguments.
So thank you. And so to build off of actually where what Carol had said relative to COVID, this is actually a nice place to sort of talk a little bit about some of the challenges that we've seen over the last 10 years, some of the concerns looking forward, and obviously looking at development through the eyes of this past 2-year pandemic, I think is a really important consideration in things like work from home, and in things like safe spaces and outdoor, healthy availabilities. But so what other things have we seen over the last 10 years that have been challenging or transformative that we need to keep in mind?
Changing economy.
Mm-hmm. And this doesn't need to be limited to those of us who have read the Plan of Conservation and Development. So I would certainly welcome, John and others to participate. But yeah,
John, feel free to give your thoughts. I don't know if you've had a chance to read the Plan of Conservation and Development.
I looked through the brochure, if that counts. I think over the past 10 years, right, affordable housing legislation, that law seems to be a lot more prominent now, and a bigger deal now than it was, say, 10 years ago.
Yep. And we have an affordable housing plan.
I think the last 10 years, transportation has changed and will continue to do so. Electric cars are going to be a lot more important over the next 10 years. I think bicycling and the bicycling lane, I think people are out walking. I think the train system is much better now here than it was 10 years ago. So I think transportation needs to be kept in mind as far as when development wise. Does every shopping center need as many parking places? Does it need more bike spaces? Does it need bike routes to it? Does it need charging stations? So transportation, I think, has been a big change and will continue to be that.
And I would jump in with obviously climate change being, something that is we've seen the effects of over the past 10 years with some major storms here. And then it seems as though this is just accelerating, thinking about how the town can best position itself to deal with climate change should definitely be part of the plan.
Good point.
And to be honest, the part of it that I most disappointed hasn't happened are the sidewalks, bike lanes. I think that would be really transformative for the town to have safer ways for people to get around that not in cars. And it doesn't seem like much movement has been made on that.
what have you what has been really positive about Madison over the last 10 years? What, aside from snagging Aaron as your planner, what has been a victory? What has the town done right?
Well, we have a town planner. I think Dave had just come on board when the previous BOCD was wrapping up. And yeah, so, I think in a way, as a new person on the commission, I've kind of raised some questions to myself about what is the role of planning and zoning. And, we have professional town planner, we have zoning enforcement officer. We have one of the largest commissions in the state, as I understand it, with 9 positions and 3 alternates. So, again, I think it's what is the role of planning and zoning? I think that's a basic question to answer.
Go ahead.
I moved here 10 years ago, and one reason was I just thought it was the nicest coastal residential community. And while Madison's growing in places, it's retained that character to a great extent. I think that's really important to a lot of people, but it doesn't mean we can't have commercial development and office development. Somehow it doesn't have to be on, every street corner. So.
I'm actually happy to see some of the cluster developments, the apartment buildings going up downtown. I think that sort of communal living in the downtown area, it makes a lot of sense. And I think it really adds to the town. So I think that's been a positive change over the past 10 years. And I don't know how long we've had sort of more restaurants in town, but I'm always in favor of more restaurants. It feels like there's been more going up over the past 10 years than, the 5 years prior when we first moved here.
And again, keeping the downtown alive.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think it was interesting during the pandemic, how, more people used it for walking and getting places and outdoor eating. We were sorry to lose our cinema for a while, but it's back online. And I think we've sort of learned from that experience. Elliot, we're hogging the conversation here. Would you like to add anything?
Not very much. I mean, everybody's pretty much covering most of the topics that I would cover. I mean, I've actually been in town now for, I think, coming on 17 years. And the one thing that I do like is, we've been able to adapt with what was just mentioned about the apartments downtown, but still keep the quaintness of Route 1, the immediate downtown that people pass through. And, the character is definitely still there. And just saw an announcement that the easement was finally signed to bury the wires finally, going through downtown.
Yeah.
Which, that question was just brought up at the last meeting, and it was nice to see that finally is going to get finished up. But yeah, just
12 years saga.
that's been going on for as long as I can remember. But just keeping the whole character of the town, but still adapting to the current times is one of the things that I'm been most impressed with over my time on the commission.
So everyone has heard me say this, but I grew up in Madison. And when I graduated from high school, I couldn't wait to leave because I thought it was such a boring place. And then when I came back to work at Yale, I didn't really think twice about where else I would look. And I have to say, when you asked what's the positive thing that's, maybe the last 10 years, I think there just seems to be a much healthier lifestyle. Whether it's families and the school systems, and I'm sure there's still many problems that we had back in the 60s and 70s, but it just seems to be a much more kind of wholesome environment. And again, that's where we want to see more bike trails and hiking and sidewalks and keep that healthy lifestyle going, I think, and give our kids plenty to do so they're not just hanging out, getting into trouble. Not that I would know anything about that.
Sorry to be negative, to go back to the problems that we should be thinking about, but Carol just reminded me, I think a major one is the incredible lack of diversity in town, and whatever we can do to help promote diversity, I think is going to be essential. And in fact, just yesterday I saw someone I know posted a map of the US by places. It was a map of places that have very little diversity, and unfortunately Madison was on there as sort of into the pink, with red being the, the least lack of or the most lack of diversity, the least diversity. Anyway, it was kind of jarring to see us on this map as a little red dot. So just a reminder that I think, I'm not sure, I know the affordable housing is helpful, and people have been talking about that a lot, but I think there really is a lot more that we could potentially do to help attract different types of people to town.
So again, wanting to be sensitive of your time and wanting to get you to your public hearings, the last thing I just wanted to talk about is a little bit about process, and if there's anything important about your process, and obviously the plan belongs to the Planning Commission. It is your responsibility to adopt it, but there is no prescribed manner in which the state expects you to develop it. So I guess, I would ask if there are things you want to be sure get included in this process, in terms of listening sessions, in terms of perhaps inviting other groups or stakeholders to either be part of these ongoing discussions on the monthly basis, or, to sort of invite, 1 month you can talk to some conservation groups, and another month you could talk to housing advocates, and another month you could talk to, bike and ped proponents or something like that. If there are sort of groups or process you want to make sure is part of this year.
Well, I think it's essential that everyone be given an opportunity to come and have their say. And that may mean more public meetings than we want, but the opportunity to come and give your 2 cents. And if we limit it to just certain groups or certain interest groups or whatnot, but what I've seen successful in the past, and Madison's small enough that we probably don't need to do this, but you'd actually go out to the community and have the meeting in a certain area of the community where people only walked or drove 5 minutes and got their meeting and could have their say. Now, the town hall is close enough, but how do you get, invite everyone from North Madison to have their say on next Tuesday night? That may not be practical, but whether we take it out to them, but we don't want to end this process and have people say, I never got a chance to give my 2 cents. That's my thought. That's what makes it legitimate. People may not ever say anything, but they have to have the opportunity.
John, I think we're also going to rely on your guidance for process.
Yeah, and I think in some of these things, there are certainly, the opportunities and ways of getting out to different parts of the community geographically, or different facets, either for those sort of open-ended discussions, sort of what we're having here, or at certain phases where we wouldn't come to the town with a completed 120-page document and say, what do you think? But rather, in a couple of months, if we've sort of come upon, 3, 4, 5 overriding themes, and obviously bike ped, like mobility, that's one thing, and increasing diversity and planning for climate change. Some of these bigger picture themes, we can then, sort of say, here's where we're headed. What do you think? Sort of at various points. But we can certainly talk about that, and to a certain extent, that's the point of this introductory discussion, is to sort of get a sense of that. What I would propose would be next time that we would set aside some time at your where are we? I guess October already. Meeting to I would say review, and Aaron, I don't know if this is already sent out. We've sort of done a matrix of the goals from the prior plan to actually go through together and sort of pick some out and figure out if there are things that you've said you wanted to do in 2013 that we haven't gotten to for some reason that are still really important, or things that we can check off the list and say, yeah, great, done, and sort of start to build some of that, sort of assess where we've been. And then I would say the other thing we could do next time is sort of structure how we want the plan to present. And a lot of plans, not Madison's, interestingly, a lot of plans sort of structure things, housing, transportation, economic development, conservation and open space, and sort of have topical sections. In the case of Madison's 2013 plan, you sort of had these 4 or 5 sort of geographic, sort of thematic things where, community character was one, and the town center was one, and sort of managed growth was another. So I want to talk a little bit about how you want to structure that, because then that will also inform our process over the next year or so. And then we can kind of talk about the timing of public input. So that's what I would propose for next time, would be what review of these sort of existing plans, and then talk a little bit about structure for the next one. And so if you haven't yet sort of familiarized yourself with the Madison plan, I would encourage you to reread that. And Aaron, if you'd like, we could send a couple of other town examples of how different towns do this. I know Clinton, which we wrote around the same time you wrote your last Madison one, is very topical, sort of transportation, housing, economic development sort of thing. But then they do a huge breakdown in terms of geographies. Whereas Essex is, which was done about that same time, is very thematic, 5 themes, as is. So we can kind of take a look at different models of how plans are done, and kind of go from there. That makes sense.
Sounds good.
Send out that matrix and some links to examples.
Okay, so we'll send that out probably next week.
Yes, give everybody some time to review our current plan and then some of these items.
Okay, well, I'll let you get back to it, Madam Chairman, and thank you for your time. Look forward to working with you all.
Goal is to have a little bit more time.
Yeah, we will have more time.
Well, tell these folks to stop applying for stuff.
Thanks for accommodating our busy schedule this evening.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
John.
All right, next agenda item is part of our regular meeting, a pending application for 22-19 New Road. Aaron, do we have anyone here representing them? I see it's set for public hearing at our September 15th meeting.
Right, that's just a reminder that the public hearing will be on the 15th. So there's no discussion on that one. We can actually, and your next item is also tabled. So our next line of business would be the 45 Wall Street and 100 Bradley Road.
Okay, great. So moving right along, so we're just skipping over the Old Toll Road and moving on to 22-23, 45 Wall Street and 100 Bradley Road. And I see we have Attorney McKeon here.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Welcome.
Hopefully I can make this quick. I know you guys have a busy schedule, but for the record, my name is Chris McKeon. My office is at 900 Chapel Street in New Haven. I represent the applicant Gulick Properties on this matter. You will recall that I was before the commission back in June for a modification of a special exception that had previously been granted back in 2018, where we pared down the project from a 9-unit residential complex to a 5-unit complex. the commission granted that modification. And at the hearing of that, I guess warned you, maybe that's not the proper term, advised you that we were continuing to seek the ability to pave additional areas on Brookside Road, but we ran into the 100-foot upland review area of the wetlands. And the reason we wanted to pave a little bit further is because there are two homes that have driveways. They are the two homes that are the furthest west on Brookside Road. And we had just wanted to run the paving far enough that those folks could drive on pavement to get to their driveways. After the approval that the commission granted back in June, we applied for and appeared before the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency on August 1st, submitted a plan to do that additional paving and also put in a grass swale in an area where some of the water will surface flow off of a small portion of this additional paving. The other portion of this additional paving is draining into the existing drainage system that was approved back in June. So we are now here on a modification of just the site plan to put it all together, what we obtained approval for at Wetlands. We also wanted to note that the address of the property technically includes 100 Bradley Road. That is the Hearth property, because Brookside Road is actually owned by that owner, an entity called NHP Madison LLC. My client, Gulick Properties, has a recorded easement to not only utilize the road, but also has obligations to maintain that road. And since we were before you last, not only did we obtain the approval to do this additional paving in the upland review area, but we finalized an agreement with all of the people who have access to Brookside Road for accessing their properties on Brookside Road. That agreement I had worked through with attorney William Bilczek and all of the folks on Brookside Road who have and utilize Brookside Road for access to their properties. So that agreement is finalized. And the last point is that the owner of the property, of the Hearth, NHP Madison, you may recall a condition of the prior approval was we had to provide evidence of consent from that owner to do the work that you approved and that my client wants to implement. And since that time, and I've filed along with our application to modify the site plan, we have a letter of consent with not only the modified site plan that was presented with this application, but also consenting to the work that was approved and put before the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency. So this is the last step in what's been a long process for the Gulicks. The additional site work is minimal. It literally is a little bit more paving. The existing drainage will handle the majority of the water that will come across that paving. You'll recall there's a separator in the catch basin to deal with that water coming across pavement. There's a small area that Wetlands had wanted us to have that water flow and go into a very natural grass swale area. But otherwise, the majority of the area in the upland review area that is not paved, the approval from Wetlands was leave that area alone. In other words, the less we do, the better. So the last thing I want to point out is on the Wetlands approval, there was a proposed rerouting of the sidewalk that goes west all the way into the Hearth property. And at the Wetlands meeting and the Wetlands approval, the removal and reconstruction of that sidewalk was abandoned. So that curved sidewalk area will remain in the area and at the request and pursuant to the approval from wetlands. So otherwise, our application and the modified site plan that Greg Fettis has prepared, I see Greg is here. We don't have much more to present to you tonight and are merely seeking your approval for the minor modification to include this additional paved area.
Thank you. Does anyone want to see the plan? Are we okay?
Instead of just a sidewalk.
Yeah.
Do you want me to put it up? I certainly can if you like.
Got it here, Chris, if you want.
You have one?
This is Greg Fettis with Fettis Engineering. Just trying to blow this up a little bit. But the area we're talking about is this kind of outlined area that we're paving that's within the 100-foot regulated review area. The shaded area here is the area that we're kind of leaving alone. And then this kind of this other area here is where they want us to create the gentle swale going back to the wetlands. And this curved sidewalk here is what Chris was talking about. We're not going to reroute it. We're just going to leave that in place. So that's generally it. Let's see if I can. So yeah, the additional paved area, a portion of this is going back to the hydrodynamic separator. The balance will flow down this gentle swale towards the little wetland stream that goes under the bridge going to the hearth. And the sidewalk, you can kind of see it outlined here. We say to be removed, but we'll adjust that accordingly. It's going to remain, and we're not going to do this rerouting.
Okay, thank you.
And Greg, I think the second page of your plan shows that the walkway would remain. I think it was just sheet one.
Oh, is it just the first page?
I think that's correct.
Typo on it.
Well, it doesn't call it out here, but it's still, we're showing the proposed one going around. So we'll adjust that as a condition and do a revised plan for Aaron.
Anyone have any questions? Further discussion? If not, maybe we could have a motion.
Does the public get an opportunity or not on this?
It's just a site plan modification, Ron, so it's not a public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
There's not a requirement for public comment. And also I don't see anybody with their hand raised for public.
Hand raised.
I spoke too soon, actually. There is a resident or an attendee with their hand raised. Madam Chair, are you entertaining comments?
Sure.
On the site plan application?
Yes, please.
Corey, if you can identify yourself for the record.
Barbara Moore from 20 Edinburgh Lane. I had a question for Mr. McKeon. So you had to downsize from 9 units to 5 units. And what made them say you had to downsize from 9 units to 5 units?
Should we try to keep our questions directed toward this modification?
It's related to the modification because he had to modify it, right? Or you just mean the pavement?
The pavement is what we're, yeah, that's what.
Okay, so with the pavement modification, so you're paving 2 driveways, and with the driveways, there's a groundswell of water, and so you had to redirect the water to a catch basin, right? Do you know how much water is being redirected from building 2 driveways?
I would defer to Mr. Fettis on that, but I would also say that the same amount of water that goes in and across Brookside Road is going to be doing that now, except we are catching the water and putting it through a hydrodynamic separator of the entire length of Brookside Road. Again, that's not the subject of this application. This application is just for an additional paved area above and beyond what was already approved back in June. But I don't think I'm inaccurate when I say that what will result after this development in terms of both the ability to utilize Brookside Road and the treatment of stormwater, both in terms of volume and quality, will be better than what exists there today.
But the purpose for building the catch basin is for the overflow of the 2 additional driveways, right?
No,
It's
no,
not.
the catch basin was part of the approval that was obtained back in June. I don't specifically recall, but there was also catch basins and drainage apparatus, whether it was 9 or 5. I don't really believe whether it was 9 or 5 would make a difference in terms of the water that comes and flows naturally from higher ground to lower ground on Brookside Road, which is why I feel comfortable in saying that the situation post-development will be a better scenario in many different respects than what exists there today.
So it's to catch the water from the groundswell from paving, correct?
No, there's no more water that's going to come. It's just going to be directed and treated, which is not done now. No more rain or surface water will come across Brookside Road, whether there's a development there or not.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McKeon, appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Are we ready to have a motion?
And just to clarify, all the original conditions are still in place at this point. It's just a minor modification to basically extend the pavement for that one additional patch.
Yes, Elliot, to clarify specifically, the draft resolution that I provided to the commission eliminates one condition, which Attorney McKeon had indicated. That was condition number 1 that has actually been satisfied to this date, which is providing documentation verifying legal authorization to install the drainage structures within the property at 100 Bradley Road. So since that information has been received, I did remove that condition from this modification since it's been satisfied.
So that one's satisfied, and then everything else is still the same condition.
Remaining 5 draft conditions are the same. You may add an additional 6 that the plans be updated to reflect that the sidewalks will remain. The sidewalk will remain. That's
Okay.
commission's discretion. But everything else is exactly the same as your June.
All right, then I would make a motion to approve with the 6th condition being the updated plans to reflect the sidewalk not being removed.
I second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night and a good Labor Day weekend.
Thanks.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, I would like to move on to the public hearing then, and I'll need a motion to open or reopen the public hearing, right, Erin? I think that's a continuation from our August 18th meeting.
I will begin bringing over the applicant's representatives and their team.
And I'll move to open the public hearing. I also just want to say my Wi-Fi is acting up, so I might turn off my camera just so I don't lose my Wi-Fi. Just warning you guys.
Are you at work? Because I know there were major problems at Yale today.
No, I'm at home and I don't know why, but you guys keep freezing. So sometimes it helps to turn off your video. It like helps with the,
Okay, thanks.
for some reason. Thanks.
So we have a motion. Could I have a second to open the public hearing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
Okay. Carl, I forgot Carl. Hold on. I'm sorry. I think I have everyone. Attorney Shansky, holler if you realize if I'm missing someone.
No, I think everybody is there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shall I proceed?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Good
Attorney
evening.
Shansky.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I am Marjorie Shansky, attorney for the applicant. I am here this evening with Michael Ott, our professional engineer, Abigail Adams, our landscape architect, Joseph Versteeg, our fire safety code, fire prevention code, and building code consultant, Carl Giordano, our professional engineer on traffic, Brian Miller, our certified planner on consistency with the plan of conservation and development and all of that so interesting information about the Madison town budget and eligibility for affordable housing, and John Matthews, our architect. Madam Chair, I have just a couple of housekeeping matters and then am ready for public comment. Number one is that, as promised, we filed a letter of responses to the questions from the August 18th hearing. And there were attachments appended to the letter, which included the rendered landscape plan. And Abigail Adams, whom I've introduced, is here this evening in case the commission had any questions. She was not here on the 18th. I've also appended an excerpt from the Public Health Code that defines bedroom, which is responsive to the question about the ineligible loft, and a map from the Plan of Conservation and Development about residential densities that was responsive to a question about that from the citizen questioning. Also provided is an additional expanded letter from Joe Versteeg, capturing his testimony and a copy of his resume. And we've also submitted some additional turning radius information from SLR that is responsive to the question about truck access other than emergency vehicles. So all of the materials are responsive to the questions previously posed. My second housekeeping issue is that we would ask the commission to keep the hearing open after this evening and continued to September 15th. We are in the process of providing additional documentation to the Department of Public Health that has been requested, and we are also in the process of responding to substantial misinformation in recent correspondence to the commission that's captured in the town website. And then my last housekeeping measure has to do with a question for Commissioner Bodenson, if I may, through the chair. Commissioner Bodenson, do you live at Windermere, own a unit at Windermere?
There's two Windermere's. There's East Windermere, which fronts Cottage Road. I live in West Windermere, which is on the north side. I live in Windermere West.
Okay, and I appreciate the clarification on the orientation of the condominium, because there is an opposition letter in the record from Windermere East, and I wanted to make sure that it was not reflective of some failure of objectivity that would inhibit your ability to discharge your duties on the commission in this application.
Right. Windermere, I was unaware that the board of Windermere East had filed a letter. I haven't looked at and I'm on the board of West. We've not been asked to join them or participate in any way on this application. We team up on all kinds of things, but so it hasn't come before the West board to weigh in on this.
I appreciate the clarification.
Yeah.
So, Madam Chair, if I can elicit from you the agreement that will keep the hearing open, we would stand down and entertain the testimony from the public. Though there may be questions to my team, all of whom are assembled here, and we welcome your questions. And I do have some comments.
Attorney, let me clarify that. A couple of months ago, someone in East asked the East board to have the West people communicate with the town about improving Canbourne. And it had nothing to do with this development. It just was Canbourne's not a great road. We affirmatively declined to participate with East on communications to the town on that. We didn't think it'd be effective. But that was before this application, as I understand, was even filed. So I take back, we were asked to send a letter about Canbourne, we declined, and then this is a totally separate letter that we're unaware of.
Very well. I appreciate the additional clarification.
Yeah, okay, sorry about that.
Thank you. No, that's perfectly fine, and I appreciate it. So, Madam Chair, back to you. If I can confirm that the hearing can remain open, because I also want to defer my summation until I only want to deliver it once. So that would be at the next meeting, not at this one.
I think it's fine. Is everyone in agreement that we can continue to our September 15th meeting? And I also want to give the other attendees a chance to have a voice. So thank you for that.
You're very welcome. With that, thank you.
Do any commissioners have any questions at this point? And
I have one quick question.
Sure, Elliot.
I know I'm not going to be present on the 15th, and I just wanted to be sure that at this point, we still do have a quorum for the 15th before we divert it or postpone it to the 15th.
Erin, do you have a head count? I think that we have everyone but you, Elliot.
Okay.
So thank you for your concern.
I was a tentative for the 15th, but I'm pretty sure I'll be able to make it, and I can rearrange my plans if I'm needed to fulfill a quorum.
Thank you. And John Duza, how are you able to join us on the 15th?
Yes.
Great. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Elliot. Shall we open it? We had at our last session, we had a lot of questions. And yes, we have on file the answers. At this point, should we entertain further questions from attendees, Erin, or if there are any? I see a hand up. 2, 3.
There are questions. Yes, we did have a question period at the last meeting. You have not yet done any anyone speaking for or against.
Right, we haven't, but I imagine there's still some questions. Does everyone feel that we can hear some further questions and then move on to allowing people to speak in favor of the application and against the application?
Sure. Oh, sorry. Not my call.
Well, in a way it is because you need to facilitate it. Any commissioners have any problem with us hearing some more questions?
What's the opportunity to answer them then? Since we took them the last meeting and spent 2 weeks or so coming up with answers, what's the process?
I can check. Attorney Shansky did indicate that she would be welcome public comments at this point, and that her team is here. You know, I do feel in the interest of time, it might be easier to have members of the public to be able to have everybody be heard, to receive questions, all in order without a back and forth dialogue necessarily between answering questions and when they're asked. So maybe we can go through them, Madam Chair, just as we did at the last meeting, and then
Yeah.
if it wishes to address some of those this evening, they'll have that opportunity as well. The first gentleman, I have William Porter. William, if you could identify yourself for the record, please.
My name is William Porter. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep. Yes, we can.
Okay, my name is William Porter. I live at 6 Selbridge Street, which is part of Windermere Condominium Complex, which is off the eastern end of Cottage Road, and that's Windermere East, pursuant to the attorney's question earlier. I delivered a letter to Chair Carol Snow on August 15th before the last Planning and Zoning meeting. I hope all members of the Planning and Zoning Committee have had a chance to read it. I would add that this letter represents the support of the Windermere East Owners Association. This community consists of 78 homeowners. The letter specifically addressed our concern regarding the condition of Cottage Road and our concern about the increased traffic, which will jeopardize the safety of walkers, bicyclists, and drivers on Cottage Road. As a matter of fact, I found it interesting that the Planning and Zoning Committee earlier talked about safety of walking and bicycling. Much of Cottage Road, particularly on the eastern end, you can't get off the road when there's traffic on it. Here are some facts I would like to start with. Cottage Road is in deplorable condition. Cottage Road is a half mile long, 1/2 mile long. If 35 Cottage Road is approved, there will be 49 rental units built on Cottage Road in the next approximately 2 years. 31 units are approved near the eastern end of Cottage Road. These two developments will be 3/10 of a mile apart, 3/10 of a mile apart. There was significant concern expressed at your last meeting about traffic being generated by the 18 units at 35 Cottage Road. Mr. Ott, who represents the developer, I believe, indicated they wanted to discuss widening the end of Cottage Road by Mill Road. My letter to the chair, to Chairman Snow, indicated the traffic study dated 7/20/22 for Cottage Road lacked credibility. We outlined 5 concerns. The scope of the study is, first of all, the scope of the study. It only looks at the intersection of Mill Road and Cottage Road. This development impacts all of Cottage Road. Traffic, all of Cottage Road traffic, just as the 31 rental units 3/10 of a mile away on Cottage Road do. The traffic study should encompass all of Cottage Road.
Mr. Porter, do you have a question for us?
I'm stating the facts, Chairman Snow, because I think it's very important that the commission hear this. The attorney for the developer singled out this letter, and I'm responding to it. I only need about 5 more minutes to get the rest of my points made, but they're very important. And unfortunately, I've written to the Capital Improvement Project Committee. I've written to the selectmen about this. I'm talking to you folks about it. It seems like the town of Madison doesn't want to hear my comments. So if you'll permit me to finish, I would very much appreciate and respectively appreciate it. Traffic on Cottage Road is extremely seasonal. There are many summer residents and rentals on Cottage Road. The study was based on turning movement counts on October 6th of 21, October 6th, hardly the busy time of the year on Cottage Road. So the traffic data is skewed way low. The future traffic volume section in this study has a sentence which states, CDTOT as well as the town of Madison indicated there are no other anticipated developments near that would add notable traffic to the traffic area. If traffic data from the 31 units on 131 Cottage Road is not included in this study, that is just not accurate. You spent a lot of time at the last meeting talking about turning, and the attorney just talked about the fact that you're going to talk about it more tonight. The study indicates turning maneuverability for the town of Madison fire truck from the development will require it to go eastbound on Cottage Road, eastbound. That's up towards Dudley and up past Windermere East. This suggests other traffic such as garbage and delivery trucks will also exit to the east, increasing the traffic all the way up that half-mile road of Cottage Road. Lastly, the assumption that all traffic from the 18 units to the Boston Post Road will be on Mill Road is just not accurate, particularly in the summer. Turning left onto the Boston Post Road from Mill Road in the summer because of its proximity to the Hammonasset connector is dangerous. So I appreciate your respectfully giving me the chance to express this, Chairman Snow and the rest of the Planning Zoning Committee. We just object to this development unless something is done about on Cottage Road. And we find it really notable that this developer is talking about widening Cottage Road at the western end, but nobody's talking about the rest of Cottage Road. And I really appreciate you listening. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I just want to remind everyone, this is a chance to ask a question while we're all here. And we have read the letters that are on file and reviewed them thoroughly. So you shouldn't feel that you need to repeat what's already there. Okay.
Madam Chair, Corey, if you could identify yourself, please.
Here, this is Barbara Moore at 20 Edinburgh Lane. So just to prelude to the question, leaching fields reach capacity fairly quickly, especially in a flood zone containing 18 units on it. It'll reach capacity even faster. So the question is, when this leaching field, well, when leaching fields in general reach capacity, a new leaching field has to be dug somewhere. So the question is, where do they plan to build the next leaching field? We've already had to go through this on our own, so we have personal experience with this. So they will have to build a new leaching field. Where do they plan on doing it? That's the question.
Thank you. And just your name was Barbara Moore?
Yes.
And your address?
20 Edinburgh.
20 Edinburgh, thanks. Does anyone want to answer her question about an additional leaching field?
Madam Chair, this is Attorney Marjorie Shansky. I think we'd prefer to hear all of the questions, but that was
Sure.
a sort of a repeat question from, although with a different spin on it, from the August 18th meeting, and I believe the answer is in the letter that the commission has received.
Okay.
And if the commission needs more information, we'll be happy to provide it, but I believe it's been asked and answered.
Next is Barbara Darrow. Barbara, if you could identify yourself for the record, please.
Yes, hi, sorry, I was on mute. My name is Barbara Darrow. I am a new resident at 49 Cottage, number 17. And actually, I think the first question, I just want to confirm, I listened to first of all, I bought in June. I have not been notified of these meetings. I only know about these meetings through other people. So that's my first comment. My second comment is I just want to confirm when the traffic study was conducted. I think the first questioner said it was October 6th. Can someone tell me when that was? It, what was the scope of that? How many days? And then I have, because I'm right on Cottage Road and there was a car broken down in front of my house last week, causing cars to go out into the other lane. There was almost an accident, even though this is a little road. So I'm very concerned about Cottage Road and its ability to handle more traffic. I don't think that what has been said about the traffic flow seems to be accurate based on the number of units. So could someone tell me about the dates of the traffic study and what happens if cars break down? It's a mess.
I think we're still collecting questions and we'll answer them if they haven't already been answered.
Liz Amendola is next. Liz, if you could please identify yourself for the record.
She's muted. Liz, I think you're muted.
Liz seems to be having some trouble. Liz, we'll give you a minute and we can get ourselves unmuted. We can come back to you. Nancy Ongley is next. Nancy, if you can identify yourself for the record, please.
Sure. Nancy Ongley, 49 Cottage Road and 60 Horse Pond Road. And I have a couple questions. I think some of them are probably for the town and one for the applicant. Regarding Cottage Road, I mean, we've talked a lot about the width of the road, but I was wondering whether there's a minimum width required for a multifamily project such as this, cluster housing, or some similar projects of this size in Madison, either by regulation or past practice. And then my other question is, I understand that this was originally a stagecoach stop, as Cottage Road was the old Route 1. So therefore the historic marker and the beech tree, which has now been designated as a notable tree. So I'm wondering if this was referred to the Conservation Committee and how that works or doesn't work in a situation like this. And then my other question is whether there's been a site walk by members of Planning and Zoning. And then in connection with the landscape presentation mentions trees and plantings to be added, most initially only about 2 feet tall, but we haven't really heard how many trees will be destroyed, as there are lots of mature, healthy trees on the site. So the question is how many existing trees will be destroyed? I think this has been asked before, but I don't recall it being answered. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I can answer the question about the site walk visit. No, we have not made a site visit as a commission.
Rob Marzatelli has his hand raised. Mr. Marzatelli, if you can identify yourself for the record, please.
Hi, this is Rob Marzatelli, 20 Todd's Mills Circle. My first question is from last meeting. One of the committee members had indicated there'd be questions and comments. So in order to maybe pare down my statements here, when are comments going to be heard from the public?
The process involves finishing with questions, then we entertain anyone in favor of the application and anyone opposed to the application. And I think following that, if there are additional comments that need to be made, this is the process we follow for public hearings.
Okay. So when will, first question is, when will the August 18th minutes be published? I didn't see them today.
They need to be approved by us at this meeting.
Okay. And then I still have 3 outstanding questions from my August 16th letter into the commission that I have not heard back from. And then I noted that Attorney Shansky had made a footnote and indicating that she's appealing to the Commission of Public Health. My question is, in the event that the town receives such copy, that they would share that with the public. And then my further questions are with respect to the fact that P&Z in November of 2020 denied the application in part due to health and safety reasons, for which one of the founding members of the Conservation Commission was on record noting her objection for a number of reasons. We're now at the second bite of the apple with a second application with more health and safety issues. So my question is, health and safety issues were brought up in the denial by P&Z in 2020 to the application. And now we have further health and safety issues, in particular, one that just came out today from the state of Connecticut, which had indicated the setback of the leaching fields to the abutting neighbor's well should be 150 feet. So my question is, how is the commission going to address that? And also, given the fact that this recent publication of the truck study, I find very confusing because fire trucks coming from Madison versus from Clinton have to go in different directions versus a box truck. And I'm curious to know how everyone's going to get this straight. And in a time of an emergency, when seconds count, how are they going to know which way to travel and make sure that they follow the diagram that was published today? And then further, relative to Attorney Shansky's comments in her footnote that there was no basis in law for the Commission of Public Health relative to the 150-foot setback to the abutting neighbor's well, I beg to differ that there is specific codes in the Department of Public Health specific, and I could cite them if you like. And so my question is, I'm confused as to how can those statements be made when in fact the Department of Public Health has specific statutes on their books of 150 feet. And that is all I have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Deb King is next. Deb, if you can identify yourself for the record, please.
Yes, my name's Deb King. I'm at 49 Cottage Road. Again, thank you for listening to the neighbors and the public. The first question I have relates to the existing septic system at 35 Cottage Road. The applicant's drawings state that the location of it's unknown. There's a demolition permit that was issued on January 31st for the demolition of the existing septic system, but also there's no information about where it is. So I went to the town maps and looked up, there's a map number 3309, and it shows what I think is the existing septic system, which appears to be, if you're at the corner of Mill and Cottage and you go about 60 feet east on Cottage, it appears to be just about very close to the road, 5 or 10 feet from the road. There's this rectangular box. Not sure if I've sent this in, but you can look it up on the town records. So the applicant's stating that they're going to dig that up, move everything off site, and then fill it. One of my questions is, how much fill are you going to bring in? Because we asked that numerous times at the IWA hearing, and Attorney Bilczek asked it. Mr. Ott said he would get back to us at the next meeting, and he never did. So, because this site is in a flood zone, there's restrictions on the amount of fill that can be brought in. The level of the land can't be raised. And this particular location of what may be the septic system is exactly where all the flooding on Cottage Road currently happens. And I sent a letter in showing you the flooding. A related question to that is that somebody dug a trench right across from the same area on Cottage Road. Who did the town dig that trench, or did the developer? Because all the stormwater is going to drain over onto Deep's property, which is also a wetland and a flood zone. So I just, wanted that question answered. In relation to the beech tree, these were more questions I asked at IWA that were not answered. I talked to a site contractor who said, if you want to preserve a tree, you never excavate under the canopy of the tree. Canopy of this tree, I'm sure you've all seen it, is huge. And the drawings still show what looks like excavation. I think it's the overflow excavation to the catch basin near Mill and Cottage. There's also a lot of paving in that area. So is there going to be paving and excavation under the canopy of the beech tree? Another question is, I'm not sure I saw the location of the dumpster in the parking area of the proposed parking area. It's already a little tight. And obviously dump truck's gonna have to go in and pick up that dumpster, and where's it gonna be located and how's it gonna exit the site? Thank you for answering some of my other questions. The only other thing I'd like to point out, or ask, I guess, the distance to the well needs to be doubled if the leach fields are less than 8 feet above the bedrock. So I'm not sure. I mean, it seems the DPH has rescinded their approval of the subsurface sewage system today. So I'm assuming that's going to have to be moved. And I guess the question is, when they move it, I want to make sure it's, that condition is also answered. I think that's it. Thank you.
Liz Amendola. Liz, can you unmute this time and identify yourself, please?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, thank you. I'm Liz Amendola, 67 River Road. My first question relates to the preservation of the historic weeping European beech tree. It sits on the corner of that site, I'm guessing. I'm sure you've all seen it if you have been there. Can't miss a massive tree. At the last meeting, Attorney Shansky stated near the end of the meeting that a plan was in place to preserve this magnificent tree. That when I did a calculation, I did quite a bit of research on European weeping beech trees. I have spent several hours learning lots about them, and also about this one in particular. When I used the calculation that is provided provided to estimate the age of a tree without cutting a tree and counting the rings. That particular tree, known as Meg's Beech, is estimated roughly at 204 years old. These are European beech trees, the weeping variety. They are slow growers with very extensive shallow root systems. This tree is 56 feet high with an average canopy spread of 75 feet. So my question is, what exactly is the plan to preserve this tree in a little more detail? I can see a circle around it, but I was wondering if, I don't know if this is a question for Abigail Adams or Attorney Shansky or someone else who has some more information on what that plan entails.
Mr. Marzatelli has his hand raised again. Mr. Marzatelli?
I apologize. I failed to mention a few other things. To follow up on a comment from Nancy, who had spoken about the width of the road. I had observed that the section 4.1.8.1.10 of the PZ regulations state that the commission may permit exceptions to the road specifications. And in particular, it talks about a width of 20 feet. Reducing the width to 20 feet. So my question is, if that's the case with respect to particular cluster developments, and that's what that section refers to, then surely the point of Cottage Road being less than 20 feet is very concerning. And how can the town balance that statute that's on the books of their own regulations of a minimum width of 20 feet, but yet Cottage is narrower than 20 feet? That's one. Two is from a health and safety perspective, as I mentioned previously, the septic system specs on the denial that was made by P&Z in 2020 were far less than what the specs are being proposed now in the 2022 application. So from a health and safety perspective, how can it be that P&Z denied the application in 2020 when it was a 1,000-gallon tank septic system, but now it's a 5,000 septic tank system, and on top of it, the 2020 application had a leaching area of, I believe, 375 square feet, but now it's a massive 2,970 square feet. And I suspect that's probably, and maybe I'm answering my own question, but that's probably in part the reason why the state of Connecticut DPH pulled their application, their approval application for the subsurface sewage system. In fact, the question I have for Attorney Shansky is, she relied on that approval letter issued by the state of Connecticut in her footnote that says the State Department of Public Health approval remains unaffected. Well, as I think most of us know, today, September 1st, the state of Connecticut rescinded that approval and now is mandating a 150-foot setback. So as a consequence, that 150-foot setback of the sewage disposal system to the abutting neighbor's well, how is the Planning and Zoning Commission going to address that? Thank you.
Tom Sullivan, you can identify yourself, please.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the commission. My name is Tom Sullivan from 49 Cottage Road. I just wanted to come back to a question I asked at the last hearing. And while I appreciate Attorney Shansky's attempt to paper over the file and do a little bit of cleanup in aisle 5 when her own architect admitted that these are technically 1-bedroom units when we all know they're 2-bedroom units. And I appreciate her legalistic definitions of what constitutes a bedroom. But my question was directed to the commission, not to Attorney Shansky. And so while I appreciate Attorney Shansky's attempt to clean this thing up, we have their architect on the record indicating that they're, quote, technically 1-bedrooms. That is a fact that's in testimony and it's part of the record. Is this commission, my question is directed to the commission, is this commission going to just gloss over that and accept these units as 1-bedrooms when we all know damn well that they're going to be 2-bedroom units?
Liz Amendola.
Hi, I'm sorry. I think I disconnected before. I didn't get to ask my second question that I had. And I had just another point to make about the tree on the corner of the property. Just wanted to say that the root zone on that tree extends well beyond the canopy. General guideline is to protect 2 to 4 times the distance of the canopy. The root system is a shallow root system where the deep anchoring roots are only 3 to 7 feet deep, with most of the roots on that tree being less than 2 feet into the ground. The scraping that will be involved to make way for paving will certainly destroy those surface roots. The soil compaction is something that would drastically restrict the water and oxygen uptake that's necessary for the life of the tree. And certainly paving over roots would completely block all water and oxygen. It is absolutely safe to say this tree will not survive this construction. It calls to mind the beautiful copper beech that was behind Guilford Savings Bank that was promised to be preserved. That was cut down. It didn't even survive 10 years. This is approximately a 200-year-old tree. These trees have life expectancies of over 400 years. My question about what exactly is going to be done, if it's just simply a fence around the canopy region of this tree, a fence simply would protect maybe a construction vehicle hitting the tree, but it's not going to save this tree or preserve it in any way, considering the shallow root system of this particular tree. My next question was regarding snow removal. I wanted to know where the snow will be pushed from the parking areas. Will it be going out into the road, across to the other side of Mill, or across to the other side of Narrow Cottage Road on a bad winter, 2 or 3 big storms in a row? The snow piles up on both sides. It's extremely narrow. You have to take turns if you encounter an oncoming car in the opposite direction. I'm wondering, as we're looking at this project in August, are we considering what the navigation of emergency vehicles and traffic is going to be when there's a bad winter and there's snow piled up 4, 5, 6 feet on both sides of the road? So that was my question regarding the snow removal. One last question regarding the maintenance of icy pavements in the parking areas of this complex. Going back to the tree, there's one thing that every resource that I've contacted said: a European beech tree, because of its shallow root system, many of the roots are actually exposed. That's how they get their water and oxygen. Absolutely will not tolerate street salt. So I'm wondering, will there be street salt used in, how do you maintain a parking area and safe walkways without using salt? So that would be my second question regarding snow removal.
Okay, thank you. I think we may be finished with questions and we can move to hear from anyone who wishes to support the application.
Before we get to that, I mean, would it make sense to answer some of the questions that the public has raised at this point prior to getting to the in favor and against? There were a lot of questions that were asked. I know some of them were duplicates from last time, but
Attorney
might be worth
Shansky,
hearing.
do you want to respond to the questions as you did from the last meeting?
In writing?
Yeah, and then I think you also mentioned being able to sift out the repetitive questions.
Yes,
so we don't
I'm
have to go
very
through it
happy.
again.
This is Attorney Marjorie Shansky for the record. I'd be very happy to assemble our resources and provide a written response to these questions. Yes.
Elliot, it's a good question, and I appreciate that we could get some answers done tonight possibly, but I think it would be also great to hear further comments, and both in support and in opposition. I think that we haven't heard everything yet. Is that okay, Elliot?
I mean, that's fine with me, but I mean, once the questions are answered, will the public have any opportunity to ask any additional questions?
Well, we've all agreed to meet again on the 15th, so I think depends on how this meeting goes and then how many questions there are.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Attorney Marjorie Shansky. So many of the answers are already in the materials, in the record. I don't believe that there will be a plethora of new information coming in as a result of these questions. Perhaps primarily, that is not to say there weren't one or two additional questions, but primarily directing people to the answers within the record.
Thank you. Okay, so once again, opening up discussion for anyone in support of this application. This is just in support of the application. We have a few letters on file, and if anyone else would like to speak, this is the chance. We have a hand up, but I'm not sure if it's in favor of the application.
That's Nancy Ongley.
Yes, I'm sorry. I guess one of the questions I had is I think there's some questions maybe for the committee or, the town, if you will. So how do those get addressed?
We'll review the questions and point them to the appropriate staff.
Respondent, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That are able.
Thank you.
So if we don't have anyone who would like to speak in favor of the application, then we move on to hearing from attendees who would like to speak in opposition to the application.
Any other hands? I have one. And Corey again, which I believe this week.
Barbara Moore.
Confirm on the record this would be Barbara Moore.
Hi, yes. This is Barbara Moore at 20 Edinburgh. So I know Ms. Shansky said that a lot of the questions were answered on file. Now that's according to her opinion. Now, if they weren't satisfactorily answered on file, I think they should be answered in public. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Sullivan, if you can unmute yourself.
Thank you, Aaron. And once again, Tom Sullivan, 49 Cottage Road. I'm rising in opposition to this proposal and speaking against it as a neighbor to the prior development for one of the developers involved in this project. I directly abut his other property. And if past performance is any indicator of future expectations, then we should expect Mr. Gentile and his partners to be equally disruptive neighbors to the rest of us who are residents in the area of Cottage Road. I've raised concern in my question around the architectural design of what's proposed and what's before the commission. It's clear to me that the architect, as you know, admitted as much in the last hearing. And I think for the commission to ignore that and have its wool pulled over its eyes, I think will be a glaring failure in terms of, you know, your duty to protect the town. You know, they're going to pull a technicality on us. That's absolutely ridiculous. And the fact that they would even admit that, I mean, speaks volumes for what we're dealing with here. So, and notwithstanding the health and safety factors of the scale and size of this project, scream for this commission to do something. We've heard about traffic concerns. We've heard about the septic concerns. We've heard, you know, up and down health and safety reasons that the project's too big, not appropriate for the area, and would pose health and safety risks to the neighborhood. So a big part of my concern, though, is this nonsense over the bedrooms. And, you know, Attorney Shansky can try and clean up for her expert all she wants, but they put it in on the record. Thank you.
Thank you.
Liz Amendola.
Hi, Liz Amendola, 67 River Road again. Wanted to say that I am opposed to this project. I think it's a massive project for a 1.9 acre property. I think there's been a question that's been sort of raised, sort of a head scratcher at all of the meetings where people would say, gee, why was this property not zoned T while others were, and it remained R, residential. And I actually have sort of a clear feeling as to why it was maintained residential. And that is because it's simply not suitable. And prior to Route 1 being where it was, Cottage Road used to be Route 1. So when it was straightened out, and I'm sure the whoever the powers would be at that time knew that it would be a disadvantage and a hardship for residents in this area to basically have two Route 1s running parallel to each other. This is a lot that's not suitable for this type of project at all. I think it's the anchor of our neighborhood and the residential properties that fan out from that corner lot. It's a nice mix of a little bit of commercial, some residential, some farmland by the sea. And I really hope that the commission takes all of this into consideration and going forward. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Robert Marzatelli.
Hi, Rob Marzatelli again, 20 Todd's Mill Circle. I think it's fair to say that all on this call know my feeling about the application and my opposition. And that, you know, my comment is, you know, how many bites at the apple does the applicant get? It was denied in 2020. Now the applicant relied upon the state of Connecticut's approval letter, and now it's rescinded, and so now they want to extend it. I just feel that, you know, there's multiple bites at the apple, but I think this sums it up best. as far as my opposition. And I think this goes to really a number of the people that have already spoken, that, you know, this is a residential parcel. It remained residential. In 2020, P&Z was not even sure why it remained residential. And I think that's a very key aspect here. It's a buildable 1.5 acre in an AE flood zone, possessing a large pond, with the proposal of a 24,500 square foot massive building with a massive leaching field system, 3.5 stories tall, in a current driveway that's porous, that supports this beautiful tree that would be covered in asphalt that would be non-porous in nature. And I can, you know, I'm not an arborist, but I can guarantee you that that tree is going to die. And I think really, you know, when we talk about someone speaking up from the Conservation Commission on the record, opposing what was being, you know, back in 2020 in opposition, I mean, I think that says it all. So I really think the commission needs to reject this application. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Don Moore. Can I identify yourself for the record, Don?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you for the opportunity to present. I live at 20 Edinburgh Lane. My name is Don Moore. I own 3.4 acres, a stone's throw away from this proposed project. I'm spending a lot of time and money to rehabilitate my pond and my property and all the grass and the trees and horticulture and everything, in order to create to keep an environment that's good for animals and for fish, and just to create just a nice environment. And I believe that you know, this building is really going to wreck everything. We have the Reddick Preserve, we have the Lewis Farm, we have Kirby Pond, which is my pond and land, and everyone's trying to make everything like environmentally, you know, nice. And this apartment building is going to destroy all of that. And I just don't understand, you know, why we're even thinking about allowing this. I've stated before that I know that the various birds that stop by my pond, you know, migrate to the other pond. And when you put those floodlights on the parking lot, it's just going to kill it, and it's just going to ruin it. And I just feel like, I mean, I'm all for having 4 units that are moderately priced to enable people to have a nice apartment, but doing that at the expense of 40 or 50 neighbors that are hurt by it, many of whom are fixed income and elderly, and also kind of sticking a middle finger up all the efforts that the Reddick Preserve and what I'm doing and what the Lewises are doing. It just seems so obnoxious and over the top. It just astounds me that it's even gone this far. So I think that the intent of the legislation to provide moderate housing creates unintentional consequences, and this is a perfect example of that. And I just that's I guess all I wanted to say. So thank you for the floor. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay.
Eileen O. Can you identify yourself, please?
Yes, good evening. Eileen O'Neill, 49 Cottage Road. Again, thank you to the commission and to everyone who's participating on this Thursday night before Labor Day weekend. You know, we live in a summer community. This is, I come down to Madison to enjoy the summer. So this project, you know, there's two things that you're going to be changing the zoning to allow for it. And what is the reasoning behind that? I'm uncertain of. It seems like Attorney Shansky has a big say in how this meeting is being conducted, where this is a town matter. So the second thing is the density of this project is ridiculous. 18 units on 1.9 acres of land with a pond that really is, I believe, to be part of the watershed for the Hammonasset River. And if we do have a coastal catastrophe, that these leaching fields are just, this sewage system is just not going to work. So I am definitely in opposition to the plan. Mr. Gentile has 9 units next door to us right now. You know, 9 units would be better than 18 units. The density is ridiculous, and it really needs to be addressed. How many units he is proposing here. The only one benefiting from it will be Mr. Gentile and his corporation or his partnership. I don't see anyone else benefiting from it in the town. Thank you.
Next, the name is Steer. If you could please identify yourself.
Hi, my name is Paula Steer. Just want to make sure there's no feedback. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, it sounds good.
I live at 48 Deveron Drive. Good evening, Madam Chair and committee members. I am feeling that I have to make a statement that I oppose the development as what's available to date online and what's been shared. I feel that there's many answers that still need to be answered from the commission, and I feel there's a health and safety risk at hand. I also am concerned with the traffic. I'm concerned when there's, again, the wintertime comes. I don't think we're looking at it in that way. If these repeat, I think it's important for you to know that there's just not one person that feels this way. When one person says this, there's more likely 4 or 5. They're just not going to repeat what is said, but I think it's important for us to repeat our concerns, even if they've been mentioned by someone else. I can't believe it got to this point from Inland and Wetland, and if they had this information from the Department of Public Health that recently came out, would it have been approved? So I don't know, with misinformation on the DPH, how do we get to this point? Why are we even at this point? It seems like there has to be an entire new proposal for septic. The tree is of concern. Again, it's notable tree. I believe that it's going to die as well. Right now, it's not a paved property, it's gravel. There was a trench, walked by that, even before seeing it online. I saw the trench dug and wondered, why can't we know who dug the trench across the street? What are the ramifications for doing that? Who owns the property? I hear that's the state property. This is a residential lot. It's unbelievable. It's just one word, unbelievable. 3.5 stories in what is currently a single family resident zone property for, what is it, 2,450 feet of building, or square footage, I should say. And the septic area, I don't understand with a pond how you can put just under 3,000 square foot of septic. Again, this is the information that you have to look for. It's difficult to rationalize that. You just have to say no. And it's a flood zone. I mean, you've heard all of these things, but it's when somebody just hears this for the first time, they can't believe the density of 18 units in the parking spaces, even though they'll say they only need one parking spot, that you can't get a parking spot, I hear from next door. Are people going to park on the road? Still don't know who, during the pandemic, along the entire Mill Road through that property up to the pond, posted "do not park" because they were afraid of the overflow at Hammonasset. Those were 2 years ago. Those signs were posted along Mill. And right now there is a metal post on Mill Street that says no parking. So I behoove you to look at that site and really see what is there. Thank you.
William Porter.
Hi, thank you very much for taking my call. Somebody asked earlier when the traffic study was done, and it was done on October 6th of 21. For those of you that aren't familiar with Cottage Road, it's a very seasonal road. There are many, many summer residents that live on Cottage Road. My question to the Planning and Zoning Commission is, why didn't the traffic study look at the impact of 49 rental units on the half-mile Cottage Road and consider the seasonality of the traffic on the road? Thank you very much.
Barbara Darrow.
Yes, hi. I oppose for the reasons stated by others, Eileen and others above. Traffic, it's way too big a project for such a beautiful, small piece of land. Thank you.
Excuse me, Barbara, could you identify, what is your address for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry. I spoke before. I'm at 49 Cottage Road. I'm new. I'm sorry. 49 Cottage Road.
Thank you.
Deb King.
Hi, Deb King, 49 Cottage Road. I'll repeat what everyone else has just said. This is just way too dense for this small lot of probably 25 to 30% is the pond or the wetlands associated with it. We hired experts for the IWA application process who both said a licensed engineer and a licensed soil scientist who said that the pond was going to be polluted. And you can, I believe those reports were added to the record. I hope they were. And it's not just the sewage system that's going to be leaching into the pond. When you have 27 cars in that parking lot, what they have is a subsurface storm drain system below the parking lot with a catch basin. And so all of the oil and the chemicals and all of that is going to be directed directly into the pond. It's got a drain that goes around the side as well as the roof runoff. So you've got all the septic stuff going into the pond, you've got all the storm runoff going into the pond, and it's going to pollute the pond. And I think Mr. Feratovic said it when he spoke at the August 18th hearing. It's gonna smell after a couple of years. It's gonna be polluted. It's a beautiful pond. I rode my bike by there the other day. There's blue heron. There's all kinds of wildlife that use the pond. The traffic concerns are valid. The road is very small. What we're seeing at 41 Cottage right now is a lot of people are ordering stuff from Amazon. They're getting deliveries. So there's a lot more trucks going and dropping off packages. So you add 18 more units. Those are all people who are getting deliveries. And those trucks are, like the gentleman from Mr. Porter from Windermere said, they're going to exit and probably go east up Cottage Road. And so has the traffic study addressed that? I also believe that the tree is going to die. This is This is a historic tree with a historic mile marker. I don't believe it was noted on the application that there were any historic structures on the property. There's also a stone wall in the back. So I guess just in summary, I think it's just inappropriate for this piece of property. Thank you.
Additional hands raised, Madam Chair. One is Barbara Moore, and the second is Liz Amendola, requesting to speak for a second time.
For the repeat attendees, we've heard from you a lot already this evening. I think if there's something entirely new and different that you perhaps forgot to say, then we consider hearing it, but there's no need to keep saying the same things over and over again.
Barbara Moore.
Aaron, yeah, this is Barbara Moore, 20 Edinburgh. Thank you, Chairman Snow. So yes, there is something additional I wanted to say. I've been on these Zoom meetings since November 2019. So for the past 3 years, it's gone from zoning committee to inland wetlands and back to zoning again. In the inland wetland committee, you probably didn't hear about it. They're supposed to protect the animals and the environment. That pond is a natural pond. It's not man-made. Ours is man-made. And the animals and the environment, they can't protect themselves, right? So in that way, they failed in their duties because they really didn't defend it. There was an applicant on the inland wetlands Zoom meeting who wasn't allowed to repair her patio beyond its current footprint in the defense of animal, wildlife and environment. And she also wasn't allowed to use heavy equipment. And she was allowed to use a shovel. So in building an apartment building, I'm sure they'll definitely use heavy equipment and more than just a shovel. So then it goes to the balance. How do you justify, human diversity, which everyone's for, at the expense of animal diversity, especially when there are more viable places in Madison that are already zoned for building multiple units. So if you haven't done a site walk, I highly suggest you do that. The other gentleman, Chris McKeon, he was talking about paving the driveways of 2 houses, just 2 driveways. And, even in Florida, you have to have sort of a catch basin for water when you're building. And so here it's a flood zone. They need a catch basin. And I don't really think they have a viable catch basin for the amount of water that will be coming up from that. The other thing is, I know, Carol, you mentioned how you like to have more bike trails in Madison and be great for something for the kids to do, keep them out of trouble. Not that you've been in any. And so that road is actually visited by many bicyclers all times of the day. And having additional traffic on that road, definitely there'll be at least 18 new vehicles year round and 36 new vehicles, because 1 bedroom, you're going to have 2 people and they're not going to want to share the car. You need a car to get around to Madison. And so I can foresee a lot of traffic accidents, a lot of roadkill, bicyclers getting hit by cars, speeding on that road. Right now, it's a 25-mile-an-hour zone. Nobody goes 25. I'm sure they're zipping around at 50. It's not feasible to put a project there that will endanger animals and people. Yeah, so I know Ms. Shansky said that she addressed the question, answered the question about the leaching field. The 2 questions, maybe, the questions were how long will the leaching field last and who will build it? Those were the 2 other questions. But the new question was, where do they plan to dig the leaching field, the new leaching field? Because you can't put it in the same place. And I really have a tough time imagining how you can build a leaching field in a flood zone, because the water has to go somewhere. everything's gonna be going to the pond. I imagine the level of the pond is going to increase at least 2 to 3 feet. I mean, I'm sure I have to back that up with, other examples around the country, but that pond is definitely going to increase in its level, which then brings in inland wetlands again, because that area around the pond is going to creep into the building area. So just to have you aware of that. The other thing, sorry, thank you for your time. When you think about it, putting up an apartment building is an egregious offense against the welfare of longstanding good neighbors and to the environment. I know Shauna, who's not on Zoom right now, she mentioned that she's really for affordable housing. And I'm sure everyone's for affordable housing, but this just isn't the place. It's not zoned for it. And there are places in Madison where it is zoned for it and you can build there. So maybe Mr. Gentili can build over there where it won't hurt anybody. And I know she was also against climate change, but building here is going to definitely change the climate. So I'm not really sure how she's weighing her, choices.
By the way, she's here. She's just turned her video off.
Oh, okay. I don't even see her her little marker, because usually when you turn the video off, you can still see her name. I don't see her name. Okay, but how do you balance that? I mean, are you really for climate change? This is going to change the climate so much, so drastically, if you really believe in it, and it's not like the last place you can build. Madison is big. There are a lot of places you can build. This just isn't the spot. I thought it was very interesting to find out that it was the old stagecoach stop. That's really hugely historically significant. How come nobody said anything about that, or even tried to contact Madison Historical Society? I'm doing historical, but I think it's interesting. That's something that could draw people to Madison just on that. So, well, thank you for listening to my rantings and ravings, but this is really the wrong place. It's just the wrong building for the wrong, it's the wrong place. There are other places and he can, build somewhere else and we welcome it, but not here. So I'm opposed to it. Thank you.
We hear you.
3 additional hands raised, Madam Chair. Liz Amendola. Any comments?
Hi, I'm sorry. This will be my last hand raise, I promise. Just in regards to the question that keeps getting kicked around as to who put this no parking signs over there on Mill, that was the police department. I'm fairly certain. The roads are very narrow, as you have heard a million times. And in most places, you cannot pull off the road. You can't park on the side of the road without obstructing at least half, if not more, in some areas of the roadway. So maybe the police commission or the police department needs to weigh in on that overflow parking question, and those parking signs that were there for a period of time for the overflow from the beach. I have one additional comment to make in regards to the density with the upcoming Wellington project. I believe it's called the Wellington. It sounds like a wonderful project down there at the other end. Hopefully it's well placed. But with that and the other cottages and the other properties that are already Zone T, which could eventually turn into apartments or condos, I'm starting to feel like and starting to worry that maybe our neighborhood will be targeted to carry the burden of this percentage that I know the towns are being pressured to fulfill. Really would be very disappointing to become sort of condo and apartment row down here. And I think it'd be very unfair to change zoning on properties to accommodate more when there already is a fair amount of diverse housing opportunity here. There is up and coming. I don't know when that project is starting at the other end of Cottage. And there are certainly properties that could be developed without a zone change. So my concern is that our neighborhood will be targeted to carry the burden of this required 10% for the town of Madison. That's it. Thank you again for your time. I promise I won't raise my hand one more time.
Mr. Marzatelli again? Mr. Marzatelli, can unmute.
Hello, my apologies. This is actually Dave Major calling from 111 Acorn Road. And can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I had so much difficulty at my residence accessing this meeting. It was very simple to get on YouTube, but quite a challenge, unfortunately, to get onto the Zoom meeting. So I had to actually come to a neighbor's house. So I'm concerned as to how many people in the town of Madison, elderly people, et cetera, not just elderly, but just regular people can't access this meeting because you had to drill through about 7 steps to get into the Zoom meeting, where the YouTube meeting was one simple step. So that's number one. And I had to literally get in the car and come to a neighbor's house to join this meeting. But a couple of things. So I'm 100% opposed to the construction. I'm wondering also, it's, listening to this meeting and watching an attorney from the outside kind of lead this meeting is extremely disappointing to me. Kind of shutting people down, saying that a question should only be asked once. I think they should be asked to mirror what other people said on this call multiple times. They can't be asked enough and they can't be answered and addressed enough. So that's number 2. Number 3, Cottage and Mill Road on a normal day is a nightmare to drive on, and to make a left onto Route 1 off of Mill is sometimes to sugarcoat it nightmarish. And it's unbelievable that such a massive development would be proposed for that tiny little lot that really would support a single family house, never mind almost 20 units. It's perplexing. So, and then I guess the other question is, with the state letter that came out today, how can we even be discussing this any further with the decision that they made? I'm just at a complete loss as to why the town is even having this discussion. Mrs. Shansky, you look perplexed also. So it would be nice to see some responses to these questions. Thank you so much, and thanks for all your help with this.
Eileen O.
Yes, hi, Eileen O'Neill, 49 Cottage Road. So I've addressed the commission before, and also the town planner, but now there are 2 new positions. Ms. Mannix, you are new, and also Ms. Snow. So again, thank you for your service. I'm a United States Green Building Council lead accredited professional, which is leadership in energy and environmental design. And my specialty is neighborhood development and design. So I began that in 2009 due to neighborhood issues that kept coming up, because these issues come up in every community. So how do we address them? I've asked the commission previously and the town planner that to hold some type of a community meeting to get the neighbors and the businesses and the parties that want to invest into Madison to sit down and say, what do we want this part of Madison to look like? This part of Madison is a tourism area. People come to Hammonasset in droves every day. What do we want to offer them when they come here? So to just take this area and take the affordable housing statutes and just say, you don't have a choice, seems to be what's happening in this particular situation. What we really need is we need to have a community meeting. We need to have all the neighbors who are all on this phone call. Again, the Thursday of Labor Day weekend, which is a very inconvenient time for everybody. And we need to sit down and come up with a responsible plan that satisfies the town of Madison and the residents of Madison, the business owners that have businesses here in Madison, and say, what do we want this part of Madison to look like? I am opposed to this project. It's not the correct project for this piece of property and the density and the coastal concerns, the Hammonasset watershed, the wildlife. It's just, it's just transforming the area into something that really isn't going to benefit why people come to Madison, why people come to Hammonasset. We probably need the state to sit down with us. So I'm asking you to schedule something like that before making a decision on this project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all for your questions and comments. We now have time for the applicant to respond, and just for clarification, Attorney Shansky represents the applicant, not the town. So she's speaking on behalf of the applicant. I think there might have been a little confusion about that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Attorney Marjorie Shansky. The last speaker, I hope, came to the earlier part of your meeting and heard Mr. Guskowski talk about the inception of your Plan of Conservation and Development rewrite, because that will indeed provide the kinds of opportunities to which she is referring. With respect to this application, specifically, Brian Miller's report talks about Plan of Conservation and Development consistency. He does a density analysis in it, which demonstrates that the proposed development is not even the most dense among the existing developments. So there's been a lot of that kind of broad-based commentary this evening. Concerns, which of course are not evidence, speculation, and simply statements that are not accurate. It would be, I think, reviewing Mr. Ott's stormwater treatment train would be illuminating for those who are concerned about the water quality in the pond. And right now I'm just sort of generalizing as to the concerns that have been raised, because the record is already rich with information for this commission. And so with respect to water quality in the pond, the fact that this application was fully vetted at the Inland Wetlands Agency, and we had water quality experts, we had wetlands experts, we had the team I have here today. A couple of people weren't there, but there were several people at that level who are not here tonight. So that has all been seriously vetted, and that approval was unanimous. So we think that that speaks reams for the matters within their jurisdiction. I do intend to provide a more granular response to the questions, and I do want to, I regret that there were ad hominem statements within the context of some of this testimony. It's really my belief that all of that can and should be avoided. I will say that that with respect to the notion that I have somehow papered over the file to correct or reframe the testimony of our architect, when he said that they are technically one bedroom units, they are both technically and accurately and actually one bedroom units. And the reason I added the technical standards from the Public Health Code are because there are 4 criteria that have to be met to constitute a bedroom. And these lofts, these open space floor plans on some of the units are just that. They're open space plans that do not meet the criteria of a bedroom, and that will be within the control in some measure by the building official during the inspection process for construction. So that is legitimate and forthright and accurate. So there are a couple questions here that I don't know the answer to without speaking to my team. And were we in town hall, we would have repaired to the little room off to the other side and caucused a tad. That would be one of the downsides of the Zoom format. But I do want to say that one of the team texted me and said, it's the town dug the ditch. The town dug the hole on the other side of Cottage Road. We didn't. And it's our understanding that the town did. So again, all ill action or concerned action should not be imputed to the developer by automatic. So I don't know, is there anything specific about which the commission thinks it would like to hear? We're gonna come back to you. Yes, Miss Adams is here, but we're gonna come back to you in more detail about the beech tree because it has been a topic of concern and we'd like to give you sufficient information on that. I'm looking, oh, that was last time. Let me make sure I'm the right date. To Mr. Marzatelli, concerned about section 4.1.8.1.10 or whatever that section was relating to cluster development and road standards. A, we're not under that section. B, that refers to roads that are being made out of nothing within the context of a cluster development. So that discretion is part of something that doesn't apply here. And the Cottage Road and the Mill Road are existing town roads. That doesn't apply. Let me see, that's the beech tree. I don't think that, in fact, I strike that, start that over. The map that was provided with the traffic routing or traffic radius drawings that were provided today is not a route drawing in terms of prescriptive. It's not telling people how to get places. It's just distinguishing by color what the analysis refers to in terms of how a truck or an emergency vehicle has arrived at the site. So it's just a facilitation for the commission members to follow the diagram. The ones that are in blue show something from a direction, the ones that are in purple show something else, and then there's the third color, which I right now don't remember what it is. Let me see. I think that I responded to the notion in the letter after confirming with SLR that the new developments were factored into the traffic study that is part of the record. And frankly, as I mean, there were many questions asked tonight and many were duplicative. I don't think, I'm hopeful that it won't take as long to provide a response to the commission. And I think it would be more orderly, again, unless the commission has some topics of immediate concern, for us to simply aspire to do that as quickly as possible. Because I think that there's a lot to which my comments and to which the matters in the record already respond. Oh, I do want to say this about the prior application. What the commission turned down in 2020 was a zone change request to the transition zone in order to do the 4 cottages. So the idea of whatever the capacity of some future septic system would have been there, nobody turned that down because nobody saw that. What was before the commission at that time and turned down by the commission at that time was a zone change to facilitate what would have been a kind of cottage development. So that's the kind of inexactitude that perhaps leaves an impression, perhaps it doesn't, but it's not accurate, so it should not sort of bind your thinking, ideally. My notes are so dense that I'm having difficulty deciphering what I can pick out right here now, and I see a lot of questions about the beech tree. You know, the idea that we have further proceedings with the Department of Health is just a description of fact. It doesn't alter the progress of this application forward. Yeah, I think if it's satisfactory with the chair and the commission, I think that I would leave it at that with the promise that we'll give you something that is ordered in the same way in which my letter was ordered today, which is the progression of the questions and taking the challenge from the member of the public. I'm going to answer them several times, with apologies to the commission for having to read them.
Thank you, Attorney Shansky. Do any other commissioners? Elliot, you have your hand.
For Attorney Shansky, thank you very much for clarifying what was actually proposed back in 2020, because that was my understanding also, that it was just a transition zone at that time. One of the things that I kept hearing mentioned was that you were going for a zone change with this application. And a couple of people had mentioned it in their statements, and just want to clarify, with this application, there is no required zone change.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Commissioner. There is no required zone change. This application is brought to the Commission under the provisions of Connecticut General Statutes H-8-30G, the Affordable Appeals Statute, and we are here with a site plan. And that is all that's required in the zoning, in the affordability plan, which is filed contemporaneously with this. It's in the record, and on the cover sheet of the plan set is a zoning standards chart. And as I pointed out in the letter, and it is shown on the chart in those two places, the lot coverage of the proposed building is within and under the permissible lot coverage. So for all those who talk about the excesses of the building, it is not out of proportion. And indeed, that was the reason I was pleased to add the rendered landscape plan to my letter, to demonstrate really what a beautiful addition this will be to the streetscape. And the what do you call it? The landscaping around the pond is going to enhance its function. Right now, it's a manicured lawn all the way up to its edge, so it gets no services and functions from the environment. In fact, it just gets negative. No treatment to the water before it gets to whatever's traveling on the soil before it gets to the water. So there will be environmental services performed by the landscaping, which will be friendly to all of the flora and fauna around. I would also say, from a climate change perspective, that density in housing is an important means of combating climate change. There's nothing that is more contributing to the emission of greenhouse gases than this proliferation of single-family homes with bigger travel. Density is a friend of mitigating climate change. So I think there are so many benefits associated with this development. 12 units of market housing, 6 units of affordable housing, and helping the town of Madison, which sits at 1.68% affordable housing, where 10 is the state's goal, is helpful to the town. So I will write to you. I will tell you more in my letter, and look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks, and hope, as Attorney McKeon said, that you have a nice weekend.
Thank you, Attorney Shansky. I think with that, we can continue the public hearing until September 15th, unless there are other comments.
Carol,
Questions? Yeah.
Is this a time for commissioners to ask questions, or we will do that next time?
Yeah, I think we can. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I thought we were finished. So go ahead, Ron.
Well, I mean, I can do it tonight or next week, but I think, isn't there a procedure for us to ask the applicant questions that have come up from all these comments and whatnot?
Yep.
Okay, so my question is to the traffic engineer. I've never prepared a traffic study, so I wouldn't know how to do it at all. But it struck me, contrary to common sense, that the traffic study is based on 5 cars leaving in the morning and 5 cars coming back during the key hour, and the same 5 cars at night leaving and coming back. And what strikes me is that I don't understand is there are 18 apartments, and let's just assume only one person lives in each apartment. That's 18 cars. Someone mentioned tonight there's probably gonna be 2 people living in each apartment, which could be 36 cars. But your own parking is 27 cars. So I don't understand how the traffic study works if you're deciding that at the peak hour in the morning and the peak hour at night, only 5 of those 18, 27, or 36 cars are going to work, going to school, going out. So it may be exactly the way traffic studies are supposed to be done. It just strikes me as contrary to common sense. You would pick a number of 20% of the cars are going to leave at the peak hour. Why? And if that's it, and is that standard for traffic studies?
Hi, this is Carl Giordano, representing the applicant with SLR. That is all standard for traffic studies. Similar with the traffic generation and the parking, not all of the traffic and not all the parking is going to be happening at one time. And we choose the peak hour of the day for the traffic analysis to see how the adjacent streets will be impacted most. So all that is standard, and while it doesn't seem like it matches up with what you might think, that is all based on industry data that's been collected over the years.
Could you cite to us then whatever is standard in the traffic industry that you would only use 5% of the probable number of cars or 20% of them leaving during peak hours, and that's the way you do a traffic study every place in the United States or whatever, and you just ignore the other 80%? I'd like to see that. You're saying that's standard. You should be able to cite something that we could rely on then.
Sure, the Institute of
Thank you.
It's the
I'll be educated then.
It's the Institute of Traffic Engineers. Carl, what edition are they on now?
Yes, the Institute of Transportation Engineers, edition 11, and they break down residential uses by many components, and this was corresponding with the number of units proposed, and that's how all that compiled data arrives at that traffic generation number.
Okay.
That is the Bible in the field.
Good.
I will also state for the record, since it was a question, state statute in last year has now restricted the required parking associated with 1-bedroom units to 1 parking space. Because again, I suppose we could look at it from a climate change perspective. There's been just extraordinary overpavement of the planet in service of vehicles that, as you drive around, you know that there are many more vacancies. So imperviousness associated with water quality, associated at some point with degradation of water quality. So this is by the determination and study of the traffic engineers, is the amount of parking that is required to support this use.
Okay. Then, since we're somewhat restricted from asking questions between meetings, I'll ask Aaron. I don't know the status of what the Department of Public Health did or the state did with respect to 150 feet or 75 feet or pulling the application or whatever. And I assume we as a planning commission have to defer to the public health side of the town, to the inland wetland side of the town. But if they haven't acted to deny or approve by the time we have our next hearing and meet to decide, are we facing a situation where we're going to be voting on a project, but we have no idea what the state and the local health officials are saying about the septic system, the well, the distance? Or do we say, oh, well, that isn't there, and therefore this doesn't meet the health requirements. I'm just wondering, are we going to have all the information? Do we deserve all the information?
I think I can try to answer your question. As Attorney Shansky indicated, they're in the process of communicating with the local and state health departments, and that was the reason they requested to continue the hearing and keep that open to be able to provide some additional information to the commission at your next meeting.
That's not the question. I love information,
Well,
but if the information is not a decision by the public health officials approving this, do we just delay this, or do we have to act without knowing whether this meets the public health requirements?
If I may.
Yeah, if you could answer that.
Attorney Shansky, it's our goal to get to a place of repose before you have to make a decision.
Yeah.
That's our goal.
All right. But would you agree that if there's not a place of repose and you do not have the permission of either the state or the town, cannot the commission take that into account to say, well, this doesn't meet public health and safety because there's no approval of the septic or something?
With all due respect, here on the 1st of September, I'd like to just hold that question.
Okay. All right, well, we'll need that answer from someone.
Understood, understood, but it's the 1st of September.
Okay, good.
And I'd also like to remind the commission that should you have legal questions, you can ask our land use attorneys as well for guidance moving forward.
Well, Aaron, with all due respect, since you don't want us to talk to you off the record or something, I don't get those answers. So that's why I'm asking them on the record. If you tell me I can call up the attorney or call you, I'd be happy to do so. But 4 weeks have gone by and I haven't gotten answers to some things. So
You are always welcome to contact staff with any questions you may have. And
who's Scott? Who's Scott? Who's Scott?
I am your staff.
Oh, staff. Well, I do. I'm just saying I'm not getting answers, so I'm doing it on the record, and I'll continue to do so. I don't want to be contentious about this, but I don't want to be told that we can't ask questions because it's not a meeting, and then ask questions and not get answers. So, and I'll send you all my emails about questions if you want me to again. But,
I think the response that she had to your question was the fact that it was in a group where everybody in the commission was part of it, and it should be
no,
between
I've
you
sent
and Aaron
directly
directly.
messages, but I'll do it your way. Go through the staff again.
Thank you.
But let's hope we don't have to ask them again next meeting.
Okay, are there any other comments or questions among commissioners or anyone on?
I have a couple things. I would like to once again thank Attorney Shansky for going through and answering some of them questions, because from the public on record, because I was going to note that it was the first public hearing that I've been involved in where there were no questions answered directly. So I do greatly appreciate you taking the time tonight to answer some of them questions. And I just want to clarify, just so that everybody is certain of this, that this is an 830G application. And everybody keeps speaking of density, and that is one of the items that we cannot take into account is density in our decision to approve or deny, or I should say to deny the application with an 830G, that the only considerations we could take into account is was it public health and safety of the town?
Public health and safety.
Yeah, that's a question we've asked staff to give us our council's opinion on. And I'd rather have this attorney tell us what our role is rather than have us talking among ourselves on it about guessing what we can do.
Are you talking to me, sir?
I was actually.
No, I was talking to
Margaret.
Elliot. I mean, he said public health and safety, and I think Aaron said, no, there's something else. Where's our attorney's opinion on this?
Elliot, did you have other comments to make?
And just to be clear, that the septic design approval is not in our purview, that is something that is done with the Madison and the State Health Building Department or Health Department. Is that also a correct statement?
Are you asking me? I'm sorry, Ellen. Yes, the septic system is under the purview of both the local and state.
Okay. All right, I think that's it. I mean, I just wanted to just clarify on that because I know I will not be at the next meeting, and you know, I think it's important that we do focus on the items that we can make our decisions on.
Thank you, Elliot. I also really appreciate raising the 830G again, because that seemed to have dropped out of sight for many of the questions. And it's all important. This is what it is.
And I think
it's a law, so.
Yeah.
Just to reiterate, the commission has in the not so distant past reviewed an 830G application where we had extensively gone over the parameters of what you can consider in reviewing these applications with respect to the need for affordable housing and substantial public interest. And so I have also, as with that previous application, worked with our land use attorneys extensively during the process and have been in communication with our land use attorney through this entire process. And our land use attorney has made it that if there are specific questions or a need for them to discuss anything with the commission, they are available. That is not something that has been kept from the commission.
Thank you, Aaron.
So, again,
sound is a little.
Just clarify, how is this going to work? We're supposed to remember the hearing from 6 months ago. You have a memo, you're going to give us advice. Because I don't think we should come to a decision hearing and be considering issues that we can't consider. And I just thought having those in writing or telling us would be very helpful. Or should we look up the law? I don't. How's it going to work?
I will continue to be in contact with our attorney and make him available should you have specific questions during the deliberation process. So whether that means that our attorney would attend our meeting to answer your questions during deliberation, that is also an option.
Any other questions or comments? Shauna, you're sort of coming back and forth.
I'm so sorry. My Wi-Fi is really spotty.
Okay.
So I just, every time everyone slows down, I turn off my camera. No, I don't have anything to add.
And Aaron, your sound is kind of breaking up for me as well. I don't know which end it's on, but if we're struggling to hear you, that's why, I think.
Her microphone is definitely breaking up a little bit. I'm hearing the same thing on my end.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry, I'm gonna tell
Yeah.
Yeah, you sound.
hours today. Maybe they're cutting me off.
It's sending you a message. All right, then I think we'll continue the public hearing until September at our September 15th meeting for the 22-18 35 Cottage Road application.
Do you want a motion for that?
I don't think do I need a motion because we're not closing it. We're continuing.
I think we need a motion to continue, right?
Okay, good. I have a motion to continue.
I will motion to continue the meeting till September 15th.
I will second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next on our agenda is the approval of minutes for August 18th, 2022. Elliot Hitchcock, our secretary. Over to you.
All right, so our planning and zoning commission meeting from August 18th, 2022, members present were Snow, Hitchcock, Hay, and Bodenson. I will entertain a motion.
I
Anyone?
move we approve the minutes, sorry.
And a second? Dr. Hay? Any discussions or changes?
I'll just make a comment that I thought sometimes the minutes were a little confusing or maybe left a few things out, but I've been assured by Aaron that it's not the minutes that are set in stone, but the actual transcript. So if anybody feels like something wasn't included or was a little incorrect, we can always go back to the transcript and rely on it. They will trump the minutes. Did I say that correctly, Aaron?
The minutes are essentially a record of actions taken by the commission. If you're looking to know verbatim what happened, there you can rewatch the YouTube video of the meeting. Should there be any appeals of an application, as part of the return of record, a verbatim transcript is required to be provided. And that's typically done by an outside.
Okay. I mean, technically, you don't have to have any of the actual what people said or anything in there.
Conversations, yeah.
So, I have one change, and it's just my name's missing a T, but that's not crucial. I'm kind of accustomed to that over the years. It's either one L, one T, or never two L's and two T's.
How do we, the L's, the two L's, it's kind of like ham and acid, Elliot. We'll never get it right.
We're just checking on whether you read them, Elliot.
All right, so I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? None. And that's it.
Thank you, Elliot. And thank you for the spell check. For remarks on, from me, I would just like to welcome again, John Dusa. You survived this meeting. Congratulations. Would you like
Hopefully this didn't change your opinion about wanting to be on the commission.
Would you like to tell us just a few things about yourself and why you thought you wanted to be on Planning and Zoning Commission, or why you're here?
Well, sure. So I moved to Madison 4 years ago, and I grew up actually in Guilford, and I had a similar experience, attitude to yours, maybe growing up in Madison. And at the most, I just wanted to get out of town, but ultimately ended up back there. So my interest is land use planning. My interest is local government. My interest is these legal issues that are coming up, and were right in front of us today. I'm a financial advisor with an office in Guilford and a non-practicing attorney. And the main way I got interested in this was an experience from my neighborhood related to the drug treatment clinic that was proposed on Route 80, the old toll road, which is pretty much in our backyard. So I followed that closely and discovered that this is obviously very important, high stakes, and kind of complicated business. And seems like a great opportunity to contribute, get involved, and also to meet some interesting people. So thank you very much. And I look forward to getting up to speed.
Well, welcome, and we really appreciate your willingness to step up to the plate. I think many of us have experiences like that, where something, there might be certain issues that are causing concern, or you just want to get involved then. So we really appreciate it. Yeah, we really appreciate it. Thank you. Erin, did you have any remarks?
Thank you.
Okay, it's been a long day. If there are no other questions, comments, could I have a motion that we adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Elliot, with 2 T's.
Second.
Second from Ron. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
We're all set. All right, everyone, we will see almost everyone at the 15th meeting. And Elliot, will miss you, but stay tuned.
I would like to say I'd miss you too, but I'm going to be in Aruba for 10 days and probably won't be thinking much about this.
The last thing you should be thinking about is planning and zoning, please. Have a good
Can I
time.
ask a timing question? If the applicant says, oh gee, we're down to 3, can I continue this to the next one? Do they have time to do that?
Applicants, yes, there's enough statutory time where an applicant can grant an extension.
Okay, so I'm sort of surprised they didn't say anything, but that's great. We'll miss you, but we'll act in your absence.